Hey guys, I just want to go ahead and do a quick lesson here on sum and differences formulas, and I'm going to go ahead and bypass the proofs of these. So when we have two angles that we want to add them, sometimes it could be difficult because we don't know the exact measurement. But we have two angles, we get sine of a plus b is equal to sine of a times cosine of b plus sine of b times cosine of a. So you notice that the angles switch, and it's kind of difficult to see it abstractly, but I'll give you some examples. It'll make some sense. Same thing with the adding and subtracting. Notice that the adding stays the same, and then subtracting also stays the same. Now that's for sine. I'm sorry. So sine a cosine b, and then it switches. Okay. Now for the cosine, it's cosine a times cosine b, and then the plus actually becomes a minus, and then it becomes sine a sine b. Same thing with cosine a minus b. Cosine of a minus b is cosine a cosine b, minus turns to a plus, and then it becomes sine a sine b. Alright, tangent, we won't cover it today, but we'll just do an example. Tangent of a plus b, try to look at the pattern you see here. Tangent a plus b, same thing, almost like this on the top. The only thing is it's going to be 1 minus tangent a times tangent b, and the plus becomes a minus. And then over here, same thing, tangent a minus b, okay, same thing on the top, but on the bottom becomes 1 plus tangent a times tangent b. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples here. We'll just go through them real quickly. Sine of 75 degrees. Well, I don't know what 75 degrees is. I can't do that, but I can break it apart. I can break it apart into 30 plus 45, and I can do my sum formula. So sine of a cosine of b plus, and then they switch, sine of b times cosine of a. And then I know sine of 30 degrees, right? Your hand 30 degrees is 30 degrees. Sine would be the bottom, 1/2. So 1/2 cosine of 45, middle finger 45 degrees, root 2 over 2. And then same thing with sine of 45. And then cosine of 30 degrees is right here, 30 degrees, and then it's cosine. Cosine is the top, 3 fingers, root 3 over 2. And then just do the math, multiply it out. Root 2 over 4, root 6 over 4, put them together, and you just leave it as an irrational solution. The next one, guys, same thing, except now we're using radians. If you notice, pi over 12, it'll kind of give you, it'll take some time, but pi over 12 is the same thing as pi over 3 minus pi over 4. Alright? And so when you recognize that, you can use your subtraction, okay, of cosine a minus b. So then this becomes cosine of pi over 3 times cosine of pi over 4. Remember, the minus becomes a plus. And then you switch it. Sine of pi over 3, sine of pi over 4. And then we already know these values here. Cosine of pi over 3, cosine of pi over 4. Okay, using your hand. Okay, cosine of pi over 3 is 60 degrees right here. Cosine the top, 1 finger, so 1 over 2. Cosine of pi over 4, that's 45 degrees, so you bend that guy. Okay, root 2 over 2. Alright, sine of pi over 3, same thing. Sine of pi over 3 is 60, 1, 2, 3. Root 3 over 2, and then sine pi over 4 is the same thing. Same thing again, do the math. Root 2 over 4 plus root 6 over 4, and you add them together. Alright, so these are pretty efficient, and you just want to leave them as irrational values. Okay, let's just do a few more. Find the exact value of sine of 52 times cosine of 22. Now we're going backwards. Now if you notice, hopefully you can recognize it's sine of a minus b. How do you know that? Well, the first one here is sine. Sine, cosine, that's the sine addition subtraction formula. And then what you want to do is, this is a, this is b, sine of a, cosine of b. Okay, so 52 minus 22 is 30, and then the sine of 30 is 1/2. Okay, so it just has to deal with just kind of recognizing it. Alright, what about this one? Okay, let's do this one together. Alright, left it out. You can pause it and see if you guys can figure it out. But cosine of 5 pi over 12, cosine of pi over 12 plus, what would it be? you notice what do we start with? Cosine. So this would be cosine of 5 pi over 12. Is it plus or minus? Remember, the cosine switches sign, so this is plus, actually would be minus pi over 12. And then this, I can subtract it. That's going to give me 4 pi over 12. Okay, 4 pi over 12 is the same thing as cosine of pi over 3. Well, I can do that. Cosine of pi over 3. Pi over 3 is 60 degrees. Here it is. What's cosine? The top. One finger. So the answer is 1 over 2. Alright, guys. And let's do one more. The last one. If you notice here, sine of 300 degrees minus 60 degrees. Now be careful. It's not 300 minus 60 and then you get 240 and then you start doing that. No. This is a summation difference formula, okay? So you're going to have to do sine of 300 sine of A times cosine of B minus, and then you switch it, okay? Cosine, okay, of A times sine of B. Alright. Now this is in degrees, and maybe this is kind of hard for you, right? 300 degrees, well, change it into radians. Remember how to change it into radians? You have 300 degrees. You want radians on the top. You want to cancel out degrees. So what happens? You're going to go ahead and one of the zeros cancels with a degree. You get 30 pi over 18. Well, we can reduce that some more. Divide that by 6. If we divide the top and the bottom by 6, we're going to end up with 5 pi over 3. So this is the same thing as sine of 5 pi over 3 times cosine of pi over 3 minus cosine of 5 pi over 3 times sine of pi over 3. Alright? Hopefully that's a lot easier. Your professors will actually prefer you to understand this, the radians, better, because it's more of a precise unit of measurement. Alright, 5 pi over 3. Where's pi over 3? Well, pi over 3 is 60 degrees. Okay? So pi over 3, I know it's sine, so I know it's going to be root 3 over 2. Okay? The only thing is, where is 5 pi over 3? Now, if you look on your unit circle, pi over 3 is right here. Okay? 3 take away 1, 2 pi over 3 is over here. And then 2 plus 3 is 5 pi over 3. So 5 pi over 3 is over here in the fourth quadrant. All sin tacos. So over here, only the cosine is positive. With that sign, that means this guy's going to be negative. Okay? So all sin tacos. These are the positive values. So all of them are positive here. Sine is only positive here. Tangent is positive here. Cosine is positive here. Alright, and so if you know that cosine is positive here, that this is sine, that means it's got to be negative. What about cosine of pi over 3? Well, cosine of pi over 3 is 60. Cosine, the top one finger, so that's 1/2. Minus, and what about this one? Well, what's cosine of 5 pi over 3? The pi over 3 is over here. Cosine of pi over 3 is this one. What's the cosine? The top. So it'll be 1/2. Now, is cosine of 5 pi over 3, is 5 pi over 3 positive or negative? Well, it's in the fourth quadrant, so it's going to be positive. So we're going to leave it. And the last one is pi over 3. Well, pi over 3, 60 degrees. Alright, what is that? Sine. Sine is on the bottom. Root 3, 3 fingers, root 3 over 2. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply. So it's negative root 3 times 1. So that's going to be square root of 3 over 2. I'm sorry, square root of 3 over 4. Okay, that's a negative. Minus, same thing, root 3 times 1 is another root 3 over 4. And actually, this is going to become negative 2 radical 3 over 4. Which, if you simplify it out, becomes negative square root of 3 over 2. So, it might take a little bit of time to practice, but hopefully that makes sense. And just use your hand, take your time, and just develop and practice practice these guys. Sine of A, cosine of B, sine of A plus B. Alright? And hopefully that'll help you out and just to be able to understand. But if you have any questions, let me know. Give me feedback, some comments if you need any more questions. Until next time, guys.